Okay, tonight I've been asked to talk about my time in Cumbria. That was going to come slightly later, but I'll keep it going now before I get back onto the military stuff and what I did afterwards. There's plenty of stories to come. However, before we do that, I'd like you to subscribe free to my YouTube channel, Rusty Firmin SAS TV. It's got about 6,500 subscribers already in a few weeks, so it's doing well. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant. And of course, with that, you can visit my website, www.rusty-firmin.org/shop. There's two books I've got in there. The Regiment, 15 Years in the SAS. Go, Go, Go. The definitive story of the Iran Embassy siege. Jamie Bell on the front. And of course, Jamie Bell plays me in the film 6 Days on Netflix, which is out now. There's also a nice print on there, which people have been purchasing. And I now have my full quota of stock of books. The rest went pretty well and pretty quick, but I've got everything now. So I'll be starting the new postage regime as from tomorrow. So that aside, yesterday I touched on the Channel 4 programme, and it was just a promo video really, but that done well as well. So I'd like to say a big thanks to everybody that took time to look at it. Had a lot of views, a lot of time, and again, it's doing really well. So a big thanks. Cumbria, I'm a Cumbrian lad, obviously, born in Carlisle, and Cumbria is in my heart. Not only is my place of birth Carlisle, but a lot of the times I come up there, I go over to Workington to see some friends of mine, which I go there a lot. And of course, Workington, a Workington man is evidence that no one trusts people around Workington or Cumbria or Carlisle. They just don't trust them. And there's a lot of mistrust. And I think Cumbria is one of those, certainly the counties which are unaccounted for in that way. And of course, that goes back a long time and a long way, because Workington is, let's say, the elections were Workington dependent, and of course that's how it all started. So 1950, I was born in Carlisle, a place called Hewson Street, which is right across from the swimming pool. As I remember, I lived in number 2 Hewson Street, which was a council house, small council house, and that's where I was born. Excuse me. I must have done something wrong, because at 14 months of age, I was put up for adoption. Obviously, I didn't know that at the time. I found out many years later what had actually happened. But having said that, the once adopted obviously moved out of that house and then moved over to a place called Wellbank, number 7 Wellbank, which was in a place called Long Sowerby in Carlisle. There I spent many years before being shipped across to a place called Klagenfurt, which is on the border of Germany and Austria. My father was a sergeant in Carlisle in the RAOC. He didn't want to be a blanket stacker, but in the war he lost one of his eyes. And of course he stayed in the military. And when he moved from Carlisle to Klagenfurt, obviously we moved with him. And we stayed there for a while until that I think it closed down from memory. I can't remember exactly. But what I do know is the short time there, even the short time at that age, I picked up a bit of German. Obviously you would, living in the country, and a child, in my opinion, how many languages can you teach them? As many as they want to learn. And that is a fact. So I picked up a bit of German as a kid, and I was even allowed to go with them and ask for the beers for my parents, not for me, unfortunately. But that was it, you know. So I moved out of Cumbria for a little while. Once we'd done that, it was back to Carlisle, back to Cumbria, and it was Wellbank. As I said, went back to Wellbank number 7, and then lived there for quite a few years. And that's where I went to school. And obviously I met some friends there for a change. Instead of moving around as a kid, different schools, kindergartens, I was steady in Wellbank for a while. George was a good friend of mine. He's still there to this day. And I'd love to have seen him in March this year, just gone. I was going to do an event in the Harrowby Theatre, which would have meant that's where I was going to go back to my roots. It was cancelled because of this coronavirus, but I hope to get back there again. So, Cumbria, there we were. Yes, friends, I always wanted to play football, but then it was school time. I went to the first school, didn't do too well, as I did at most schools. And then from that school, it was down to another school, which I can't remember the name of it, in Carlisle. It was in Denton Home, anyway, for those who know Denton Home. And it was a walk there and back each day, holes in the bottoms of my shoes. And then what you did to fix that is put cardboard on the inside. It was all right till it got wet, but that's another story. But whilst I was in Long Sowerby, my father was away for short-term stretches here, there and everywhere. However, my mother was getting iller. She was ill, and then she got, finally, she died. But we still lived there for a while, and it was a sad time, pretty much. And it's hard to think back that far, but when you sat there each day with her, on and off, and then finally, before she died, she said, I want you to become a doctor. Never made the doctor. I ended up in the army. But I nearly got there because I was a fully qualified paramedic whilst I served in the forces. That'll be another story in another chapter a bit further down the line. So, sad times. Me and my sister, we then had an adopted type mother, whatever you call them, and we stayed there for quite a while. I had my dog. People said, how do you get the name Rusty? My dog was called Rusty at that time. And of course, my name is Russell, and it fitted in. So that's another story as well. But I don't have so much time. But went to the schools, spent more time in the corridor. All I wanted to do was sport. Yes, I played for the school team, the junior school team, no problem. I could kick with both feet, and not many people could do that, but I could. Because of all the time kicking balls against garages and annoying neighbours in Carlisle, they become habit. And can you play there? Can you play? Yeah, put the shirt on. All I wanted to do was put a shirt on and play football. That's it. And that's what we did. So that went on for quite a while. Yes, got into trouble, mischief. We had air guns. We used to go pretending we were crawling through woods, and we had proper air guns, pistol, a Webley, I remember, and of course George had another different type. I can't remember what it was, but so we were the ones creeping around in the woods, and I suppose eventually it did me some good, but it didn't do me any good at the time. But football was what I wanted to do, and that was that. However, moved from there after a while, and then I moved up to Harrowby, stayed with my granddad and stuff for a while, didn't get on too well. Everything was regimental, didn't like that. And then finally, we moved over to Hazeldean, number 13 Hazeldean, which again is in Harrowby. Went to Harrowby Secondary Modern School, spent a lot of time in the corridors, wanted to play football, would never gotten outside. I was too young. Sorry, I was too scrawny. Didn't weigh about 7 stone. And we had a really good football team, a couple of England schoolboy internationals. How was I going to get in there? But when I watched them, it was me on the field, if you know what I mean. But that's, that's part of my life in Cumbria. And then the final thing is I got my Duke of Edinburgh's award in Cumbria at Carlisle. And that was the first time I'd got any recognition for anything in my life. And I was proud of that. But I was leaving school fairly shortly and didn't know what I was going to do. The amount of mischief and stuff we got into when I lived in Hazeldean with Brian, Julie and the rest of them. We had a great time there. Used to keep pigeons, everything. However, eventually that would come to an end, and Rusty would be marched from there to the Army recruiting office in Carlisle. Long hair, Cuban heel boots, powder blue jeans, tight. I look like a varicose vein. But you have to start somewhere. And as I said, I was only 5'2". But I knew something was going wrong. They wanted rid of me out of Carlisle. So the best thing they could do after the police had been back at the door was frighten the life out of me and tell me, if you don't go in the army or go and do this test, the police will come and get you. I went and did the test at the Army recruiting office in Carlisle. Walked in, right son, sit down. I had long hair. They didn't bother at that time, but right, so you want to join the army? And I'm like, I think I was crying. I don't want to join the army. A quick couple of fingers in the spine in the middle of your back. Yeah, okay. Right, we'll get you back. You do a test, a written test, a physical test. That's what we did. The physical test, well, I can tell you now, there was nobody beat me on the physical runs and stuff, nobody. And I hadn't trained for it. I trained to play football in my spare time. But the physical side, flying colours. And then it was the written test. Now, academically, I wasn't the brightest guy in the school because my school reports echoed that. Sport, up there with the best. English, maths, not very good. Woodwork, metal work, as we used to do in them days, good. I had an interest in that and things like that. However, my interest was in sport. I found myself going into the British Army at age 15. Daunting. that's what happened. And I did the written test, and somehow, and I've got no idea unless it was fiddled, I ended up in the Junior Leaders Regiment Royal Artillery, stationed in Bramcote, down in Warwickshire. I remember September 65, getting on that train, crying my eyes out with my case, never to see anybody, although I didn't have a family really, but I had friends and people who'd looked after me. That was me. Bye-bye to them. I met a couple of guys on the train who were going down there as well. So we got chatting, but still thinking of home, but that was it. Left Carlisle, left Cumbria, ended up at the station, and the rest, the station in Nuneaton, that is, by the way, when I looked out there and saw these guys with berries on and short hair, and put my mind at rest. So that was my stint in Carlisle. There's an awful lot more in my book. The regiment, 15 years in the SAS, that's my autobiography up until I left the army in 1992. All the bits in between, the nitty-gritty bits, are all in the book. But suffice to say that Cumbria is my county, and whenever I can, I get back there. And as I say, we missed the last one in March, but I hope to get back up there when this lockdown's done, and look forward to seeing anybody from Cumbria who'd like to come to Harrowby Theatre. It will be well advertised again. But the rest is not about Cumbria at the moment. So I'll finish on that note. And that's an insight into my life as a youngster. Wrap it up. Yeah, a nuisance. Yeah, it's big time. Somebody that was uncontrollable, even more big time. But we've all got something to bear in what we did. Friends, yes. Bullied, yes, I was. But I can tell you something, when I got in the army, I was never bullied again, really, ever, because I started standing up for myself. And it's food for thought. So I'll sign off for now. Who dares wins.